Brandon with BeezesProductions.com here again for Volume 2 of my video dev blog for my still untitled platforming game in Unity 3D. Getting closer to a title, working out the story, but more importantly here I wanted to show off some new gameplay mechanics. First and foremost here, I have introduced a new type of box, as you can see here. Well, let's hop in the game and I'll show you more about what it does. Alright, here we are. So we have our box. We, bigger than the standard box. Still throw it, still kick it around, still a rigid body just like everything else. The difference here is that we cannot seem to destroy this box. So even if we throw an explosive crate at it, we still do not get the result I was hoping for. Just like these boxes break. This one will not break. So how do we address this box, you may wonder? Well, I've introduced a new mechanic here. In fact, a new power-up card, in fact, here. This is what I'll call the luchador power-up card. And while active, we can jump significantly more high. And in addition, we have a new move, a ground pound move, which will destroy any rigid body or anything with a health script attached to it. So it works on regular boxes, and more importantly, it works on these ground pound only boxes, as I'll call them. So I've created the script or modified the script so that these boxes can just be ground pound only here. As you can see, we got my little bool here for that. If this is checked in the... oh, that's not the right bool. This one, actually. Of course, it's going to use gravity. We're looking at the ground slam only in the health script. When this is checked, this box can only be destroyed when the ground slam itself is performed on it. So that's one new addition. That ground slam also offers the ability to configure how much damage it does within the player script. I believe I have that set up in here, if we'll take a look. And it is under my power-up variables here. So for the luchador, well, no, power-up timer. I guess I don't recall where. Oh, here it is. In my ground slam variables, of course, duh. So this is how much damage it'll perform to the object it impacts. The way I'm handling this is I created another trigger on our player here called the ground slam box. And while active, this object contains the deal damage script, as well as another script I have in here flagged specifically for the ground slam functionality itself. But more importantly, while active, this script will deal damage to anything that this trigger hits, so to speak. So much like any damage trigger, or much like the damage triggers I'm doing on the explosives, I am doing the same thing on the player here with the ground slam blocks. Ground slam box itself. So when they perform the ground slam move, this box activates, and as soon as they hit the ground or another event interrupts them, so to speak, that box will again be disabled. So that's how that's working, and upon impacting this guy here, we pass that through, and it flags it as saying, hey, we're doing a ground slam. Let's go ahead and, affect items that are ground slam only. So then that applies the damage to these ground slam only boxes as well. So in addition, I have refined my my wall jump. Before, I did have the wall sliding. Now, as you'll see, there is no wall sliding. There's no sort of sticking to the wall taking place. Basically, what I've done here is I've cloned the Mario 64 wall kick. So in that, you jump into it, and you jump, and you kick off. Well, how's this different from before, you may wonder? Well, this actually has proper reflections taking place. If we jump at the wall at an angle, we jump away from it at the same angle on the opposite way. So what I'm doing here is I'm raycasting a line. As soon as I hit the jump button against a wall, an object that is tagged with the proper wall tag, it will perform a raycast and fire off that ray, and then I will gather that reflection point, or I should say the reflected vector, and then I will rotate the player and apply the force to them in that direction. So as you can see, no matter how we jump into it, we reflect back at the perfect angle. So again, I've also kept the player rotation near null for when this occurs. Otherwise, the player could just turn around and keep jumping off the same wall. Since obviously you have to face the wall to kick off of it, jumping back into it like that would not allow you to perform successive wall jumps on the same wall. So again, you need to be able to kick off of both walls here. You still have a lot of control over your player after the wall kick itself. So again, you won't feel limited in the regard that you can't move once you wall kick, but you will be unable to wall kick off of the same wall multiple times. You'll need two walls parallel to each other like this to perform that. So the final change, or the final big item I've made here, is for water. So not many people can walk underwater. If you can, props to you, but as a normal person, I cannot walk underwater, so it didn't make sense for this character to walk underwater. So what I've done here is made a swimming. So now you can see our players underwater. We swim around. This is still an early test. As you can see, first of all, the camera itself is a bit difficult to control. The way that I'm controlling my player is you push up and you'll look down. As soon as you let go, you return to normal. You push down and you look up. It's kind of like flying an airplane, except that when you let go of the stick, it always returns back to our center position. When you turn left and right, however, that will add to the existing rotation. So once you rotate to that, you can let go of the stick and you'll stay facing that direction. So we'll swim over to here. We'll get out of the water. But as you can see, oops, there's a bit of a bug right now. Basically, the way that I'm currently handling water swimming, and as you can see, this is obviously going to cause problems, but the way that I'm currently handling it is when you get in the water, gravity is no longer used. So as you can tell, without gravity, we exit the water and it becomes quite a mess. In addition, my acceleration force is somehow being multiplied now on my player, so that I'm continually speeding up when that shouldn't happen, given the fact that while you're in the water here, you'll notice that our drag and angular drag increase, whereas out of the water they should return back to normal. As you can see now, we're at 0 and 0.5, so there's not much drag to resist, and the force being applied is therefore much stronger than when they were in the water. So still working out the bugs here, but as of now I do have basic swimming going on. So I will follow up again here once I've ironed out the rest of the bugs and clarify more details. Alright, the details that I mentioned before should all be resolved. Numerous bug fixes and a lot of other issues that I had to address. As you saw before, obviously without the gravity, our player just took off, you know, and we never actually stopped swimming, so to speak. The other issue that I did have before was that as soon as the player would jump in the water, they would face the 0 direction on the x-axis, or I should say the Euler angle itself should be 0 or was 0. So that posed a bit of a problem, because regardless of how you jump in the water, you'd automatically shoot to face this direction, regardless of, again, how you jumped in. I did resolve that now, and you'll see our water swimming is much nicer. You keep facing the direction you previously did. Our camera is now locked behind our player and follows them wherever we may go, which makes controlling it much easier. So you can turn, you know, you can feel much more natural while swimming, kind of just like flying an airplane, except for the fact that you can't bank. But again, we have much better rotation, much better controls, and more importantly here, when we try to exit the water, we continue to swim at the surface. So now we can no longer fly, but what I am doing here too is I'm detecting shallow water, so to speak. So when the player's in a shallow area, we return back to walking. Since you can't swim in this, you hop back in and you go back to swimming. A lot of tinkering, to say the least, to get this to work. But basically I'm doing a ray cast while in the water, and when the player is toward the surface, right now for example, I'm ray casting down a certain distance, roughly about the player height. And if that ray cast hits an object that is not the water, a la the ground, we will start to walk. But again, that only works at the surface. So down here, we're too deep for it to work, because again, we're raycasting and it's hitting an object, but that raycast itself is only taking place while at the surface. So again, now we're raycasting and we're not hitting anything, so that's, you know, working as intended. We're swimming as we expect, and as soon as we come to this landing here, the raycast itself finishes, or I should say the raycast hits the ground, and it flags the player as, hey, you can walk here. So now we return to walking controls. Hop out of the water, and we go right back to our proper drag and angular drag and walking speed. So everything's back to normal here. That's all working well. How about objects? This is another obstacle I had to deal with. Stuff going in the water still works as you'd expect, but now while swimming, how are you supposed to grab objects? Well, you grab onto it, and for now, we're just walking with this. So that seems to be the best way to handle it, since I didn't really have time, or I have not yet started working with swimming while holding objects. But as of now, this is another obstacle I had to deal with, since now the player can swim at these boxes at any angle and grab them from pretty much any angle. I was wrestling with getting the proper alignment while the object is picked up to try to get it to work. So the way I worked around that is basically I'm setting all the player rotation to 0, so that as soon as they pick up this box, it resets everything for the player to 0 and then returns them back to what they were. So it kind of creates that illusion, or I should say it happens so quickly that you never know I was doing that. But it does allow these objects to be picked up properly and not cause issues like I had before, where the box itself would actually be offset behind the player and the hands would not align with the box. So, you know, again, we got the object picked up, we're walking around, we throw it, and we return back to swimming. That's the functionality I have going right now, and I'm actually quite pleased with it. In addition, as you can see, when we pick up the object then too, our player controls revert back to the normal walking controls, and we have control of our camera again instead of it being locked behind the player. So getting back to that diver power-up now that I had previously, which increased your walking speed, same effect here, except it increases swimming speed, so our player does swim much more quickly. However, when they do pick up that object again, we do still walk at the same rate we did previously, since obviously walking with the object, you can't walk faster underwater just because you have flippers and a snorkel. So yeah, that's what I've got going now too. All the power-up items are working correctly. There's a lot of logic to go into that as well to properly flag our player as no longer having the power-up, to return the drag values to what they're supposed to be, and to get everything working. So the way the diver power-up is currently working, while active and they're underwater, I do keep the same drag values, or I should say I increase or decrease the drag values so our player moves more fast, more quickly. And when they hit the shallow water, I apply the standard drag values and the standard walking speed that our player has, since obviously, again, you're walking in the water, it's going to be slow. So all that logic is working correctly. In fact, let's grab this again now, and I'll show you that even while this is active, our player does not walk fast underwater, but they do swim significantly more fast. You'll see the drag values on the right side there for the rigid body are 1.2, and upon coming on the shallow, we're back to 3 and 2, which is what the standard player is. So that's all working pretty well, and it seems to be good so far. So as of now, I hope that this should be all the functionality I have. I've got my swimming logic, I've got additional pickups, I've got my power-ups, I've got wall kicking working the way I expect. Fingers crossed that I can finally stop trying to add more features and finally get things rolling here in terms of level design now that I have my mechanics established. So yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching, and I will follow up again when I have more information.